Good to go.
Sign, please.
Oh, I guess I can do that. All right, I would like to call this meeting to order. People got the previous minutes by email. If there were no complaints or concerns about those minutes, I would move that we approve those minutes. Seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, trying to stay on track and move quickly through things. The PAD update. Mike has a list here of everybody who is in compliance, which I will pass around. How many are not in compliance, Mike?
Probably, there's resistance, and you know, the state doesn't stand firmly on that. There's probably 40 or so that are not compliant.
What can we do to put the screws to them to?
Well, we had talked a bit with Ross about Ross sending out a letter. We sent a letter, and we just outlined the policy and the procedure and those sorts of things, and why this is good for everybody. Ross, we talked a bit with him, and he thought he's considering putting his touch to it,
Okay.
which might
That would be great.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Here, what we say.
I think beyond that, probably the only thing we can really do is just send a letter to the medical directors or records and say, hey, you know, you're on the hook for this. Could we get it updated?
It's a strange bird, because also, you know, a lot of, for example, dentists just go and buy one and slap it on the wall and call it a day.
Yep.
Are they required, are medical offices, are they required to follow the PAD regulations?
I would say, I would
Yes.
say,
The name is yes.
if it's not for public use.
It is, but they do consider, I'm talking about like the dentist office, because the dentist office
Right.
fall under special care, but them and fitness clubs and I think somebody else,
Right.
they're supposed to file this.
Okay.
But if a dentist bought a Life Pack 15, then,
Which they do have.
yeah.
I mean, my dentist does conscious sedation, so he has a monitor there.
I'd be more concerned, I think, about the places that don't have doctors yet in their machines. And obviously, the dentist probably knows he's responsible, or knows he's liable for the use or misuse of his machine.
Keyboard manager.
Yep.
The intubation QA and RSI question, at our last couple meetings, we've discussed number one, some concerns from DD providers of unrecognized missed intubations in the field, as well as the corollary issue of potentially having an RSI program for our region. We decided to kind of put that on the back burner and identify if there was any more need for RSI. At the present time, has anybody encountered either cases of unrecognized missed intubations in the field or cases where RSI would have been helpful that you think can help bolster one or other of these arguments?
There are ways we've had no reports of missed innovations. I've had a few people say, RSI would be nice, and I've asked them to forward them on to Dr. Waslinski.
We got about 3 reports, and one of them not going to be RSI, it wasn't appropriate for that patient anyway.
And this is 3 reports in about a 9-month period. Is that right, Rob?
Well, I think every 6 months there's 2 to 3, which doesn't really warrant
Quite.
a volume large enough for us to keep the training up, keep skills up.
I mean, we did have one that they brought in from, you know, it was like a 40-minute trip. They had to get there, and then they had 20 minutes to bring him back, and they couldn't do the intubation. It was a hard intubation, but, you know, at that point, there's not much for us to do other than pronounce him dead, really. But we finally did intubate him, but like I said, it was a hard one. RSI, my feeling is what Rob said. There's not enough volume to train them. They do have a bunch of medicines that they can use. They have the Versed and they have ketamine
And accommodate.
and etomidate. So they have stuff if they wanted to call us and say, I want to use that. But, you know, I don't,
The problem is, and I remember this discussion from CMAC a few years ago, the idea of facilitated intubation is, everybody kind of agreed was not really a good way to do, either go all or go none. Because the risk of,
Facilitated intubation is asking for a disaster, and if a disaster happens, it is legally indefensible, period.
We're not going there.
We've been there and done that
Right.
so many times.
Right. Yeah, I think this is the first discussion on this.
So, I mean, it sounds like at present we have no reason to change our course, but we'll keep our ears open. Now, the RNet paramedic program.
Can you move it down one notch? And Brandon will be right there.
Sure, I would be happy to. So the next one, which is in your packets, is the radio reports policy. We discussed at our last meeting that hospital and field providers have identified that our radio reports have turned into war and peace, and trying to shorten them down to a more reasonable length. I had one, it didn't get many suggestions from people, so I have the proposed policy, which is page 2 in your packets here. My other option was to just do age, chief complaint, need for any special things like STEMI, stroke, or need BiPAP. But this seemed like a more reasonable place to start.
I apologize, but I must have missed that email when the draft came out. But as I watch the regions around us, the MIST report has kind of become a de facto standard. And it makes sense that our region follows the same pattern, especially when you get agencies crossing regional lines. And it's a very simplistic, very pertinent report. It cuts right to the meat. But I think I remember Dr. Morrow's concerns from the last meeting were his ability to probe deeper into a report. And certainly, once that MIST report is given, you can ask more specific questions and get
Right.
as much detail as you'd like, but the standard is,
I think that we just need that cultural change from questions are bad to brevity is good and questions are acceptable.
they keep telling me brevity is good.
So just so I'm understanding this, there's two subjects. There's the information on the report, bringing in so-and-so with a stubbed toe, and then there's the MIST report, which would be used for traumas, cardiac, respiratory problems, that type of problem.
So this should be replacing anything that would take more than 30 seconds as a radio report. That is not a request for medical control.
Okay.
Yeah, for instance, when you call Strong, that's the first question they ask, do you need medical control? And I think Guthrie does as well. When you call into Guthrie's there, that's the very first question they ask. Well, I think it's, is this a trauma or medical? And then it's, do you need medical command or not?
So if it's a trauma, it automatically goes to medical command. So,
But doesn't it, in New York State, medical control is medical control, you don't
It's
necessarily.
assumed.
It's assumed that they're
Assumed.
there. You're asking specifically for the Q&A.
Quite honestly, a lot of hospitals don't
I know
full
that,
reports
but-
anymore. And specifically, the policy statement, remember we brought that up last year, we reviewed the policy statement, only applies if you're asking for orders.
And exactly, and I actually think that this will actually help us meet that requirement better, because informational reports can be taken by anybody.
Well, that's
I mean,
true. That was not my
and-
take from Ross when he was here, saying that medical control is medical control. Whenever you call in, that they need to be listening to at least the report, if not doing any kind of interaction.
Only if.
To be aware of the situation or whatever's going on.
My understanding is only if you're looking for orders. And
Most of our medics ask for medical control if they need it.
Right.
oh yeah, they definitely do.
Right.
but there are hospitals we go to where they don't even want you to call anymore.
Oh, I know, and the DOH does not like that.
But I think we'll get people liking calls more if calls are shorter.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, so you want a motion like that we accept the miss thing?
I mean, that's fine with me if you guys don't have other feedback as to how you would change this.
I mean,
Now,
I
that's
like,
the standard you said it's strong, right?
Yes.
Because they do the mist at the bedside too.
And.
I mean, I like soap, so-
Specialist as well.
I like soap rather than mist, but.
Yeah.
But I guess we put mist and soap together,
Mist
you
and
have
soap.
to shower and.
And actually, next time I'm in Warsaw, I'll grab one, but the REMAC up there actually developed a short form that follows in this format. That whoever's
So then you
taking
could redo the
report
medical
can-
control log that's in here
There you go.
that they established.
And make it easier to fill out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. I think that's the next step, assuming that we like this.
From a field perspective, I like it. It works well.
Well, I'm gonna move that we approve this policy then, as a change to it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, fantastic. Brandon, hello,
Hello.
you're up.
Okay. I think if I'm correct, I was asked to just give a brief update on the paramedic program, the conference, and kind of where we're going with maybe the CME platform. Does that sound about right?
Sound perfect.
Yeah, so I'll go in order. Paramedic program, and we are now in the second week. My class is down there as we speak, and Rick is kind enough to take our ID photos after the meeting. I didn't tell them ahead of time, so they're all mad because they couldn't do their hair or whatever, but they'll get over that. We presently, we have 18 enrolled with potentially a 19. The 19th is trying to work out some things with regard to the college. This is a returning student, and he's trying to figure out how the college is going to, whether they can fully matriculate. He's going to have to repeat, thank you, he's going to have to repeat the entire course, but the college is trying to figure out some things with regards to his registration. So, because he technically passed semester 1 and didn't finish semester 2, so we're just trying to figure those things out. So we do have 18, I guess, for lack of good numbers. Our program is running similar to last year. It's a day program. We meet every Wednesday, double session, and we will go all the way until November of 2019. We'll test in November, just before Thanksgiving. A couple additions this year. Dr. Kellogg has kind of wrangled around a lot more of the residents that assist us. They've been a huge help in the past, but they're going to be a continued assistance with this class. So that's a huge, I think, perk for our group.
It's good for them too.
Exactly, yes, yeah. We've also added, last year for our cadaver experience, we went to the chiropractic college. This year we will be going to University of Rochester, Strong, where their cadaver lab is a little more user-friendly. The bodies are a little more fresh, yes, as you can say, and we're able to do skills. The chiropractic college was becoming more of just an anatomy lesson, and with our experience last class, you never know in what stage you're getting the cadavers, and unfortunately, when last class, the cadavers were well used to be nice. But by going to Strong, everything is kind of more fresh, and we can do skills, which is what we need to kind of build our contacts and our numbers for certain procedures, especially intubation, skills that are hard to get traditionally in the ER. Anything else in our questions about the program? But yeah, we have a diverse, looking geographically, like previous classes, we have a pretty diverse draw. Our biggest group this year comes from Corning. AMR Corning, I think, has 6 or 7 students. We're drawing 2 out of Ithaca, 1 out of Portland, 3 out of Binghamton, a couple here in the county in Chemung.
Any Pennsylvania?
No folks from PA. Fortunately, we had some folks that ran into some reciprocity issues coming into New York, so they won't be coming this class. So.
Nothing out west other than Corny.
No, Kirk, no, that's the farthest you ever drawn. Cornell wanted to send two, but their budget, their city budget didn't allow it, not this cycle. Yeah. But yeah, we reached out to them and they wanted to send two. I guess moving on to the conference, I've sat down with Donnie, Mike, and Dr. Kellogg. We've done some, very rudimentary planning. So what we have right now out, this is the save the date, which is the third page in. I'm just waiting, the agenda is pretty much set. I'm just waiting on one of our speakers to fully kind of get back to us and commit. But then the agenda will be essentially set. We chose the Bath VA this year. We've already met with the chief and assistant chief up there. They are very excited to have us. They've welcomed us with open arms. They're not going to charge us anything, so it's going to be incredibly cost neutral. I just sent a request yesterday to Donnie and Jim, and they're going to forward it to Al. The council is going to subsidize a little bit of the registration fee, so that
With the full approval of the council.
with approval, so it should shake out.
Right.
Yeah, it should shake out that people attending are going to pay $20 for the whole day. And that $20 includes the CMEs, all the things that go along with that, as well as lunch, snacks, things like that. So to me, that's a pretty good bargain. And even just for the CMEs, $20 alone is a pretty darn good bargain. So,
Now, so that's just for
New York.
regional providers.
right.
People from outside the region or across the state line would pay 38.
30, yeah, they pay 30. Because we're not
Work or volunteer within the region, or how are they gonna work?
Yeah.
Live, work?
live work, yeah, live work.
Yeah. People, we could show that the council's money is benefiting
Right.
the system that way. I think it's a good way to do it, so. Like I said, it needs the council's approval, but,
Hopefully we'll have that next week.
in principle, it has my support. I'm pretty sure it's a done deal, it's just, we
Formality.
gotta follow the rules.
Right.
So I think after we get, people agree, after we get kind of the full support, we'll fully push out the agenda and all the registration material. And this is something else we'll talk about next week at council. If we could, obviously have council assist us in pushing out the message to, because we have a good amount of emails and contacts here, but you never know how many of those go to any, do they go to, dead emails? But if we could also ask the council to kind of help us push the word out, get the word out, and get a really vibrant teaching day going this year.
Awesome.
And
While we got you, can we jump ahead to what you guys can tell us about the online CME platform?
Okay, so Mike can chime in too. Mike and I sat in on a very brief, introduction tutorial from Susie, the Central New York Program Administration agency. She outlined her platform, which is what CNY uses, but there's 5 other regions that have partnered with her, at least. Her platform is already built. It already looks very mature, for lack of a better word, stable. It really seems to do everything that a platform should, from tracking to all the educational tidbits. That agencies can even kind of throw their own spin on what they want their agency page to look like. But it doesn't seem like it's that hard for her to do those things. And Mike, if I'm not mistaken, the cost is minimal, right?
They haven't determined, because we had to send them a
Right.
letter of interest for their board to act on. They built the whole, Central New York
Yes.
built the whole thing, all the back office, years ago. And they implemented it, and then when they pushed it out to other regions, they allowed the other regions to put their own skin on it. So when you pull up Susie's or Susquehanna's, it says Susie or Susquehanna, Central New York or Susquehanna. But the back office is all the same. It's all collecting the same data, it's all reporting it specifically for you, but it all does all the same things in the back office. So they funded the whole back office. To on board with this, we would need to basically do some sort of contribution towards the upkeep, and of course, to get a skin built. We looked at several different, we looked at probably 10 of them. They all have a huge cost involved. The only two that are probably viable are Central New York's and U of R's collaborative Cypher Works. They're sort of expensive too, and I have to tell you, I'm skeptical of their support.
Yeah.
You know, that was 45 minutes of our lives.
Right, we tried to have a little webinar with him last week, and I don't think he understood what we needed, wanted.
And he's sort of done it, you know, Ben built the original one for U of R, and then I think Webster and a couple others might have skimmed over that. So it's sort of similar, but, you know, I'm not sure the support is there. And certainly they don't have, although they're a larger, more professional-oriented company that's the backup to it, Cypher Works, I don't think they're experienced in this, whereby, you know, Central New York's was specifically built for them, managed for them, and by them. So they're very responsive. And by the way, Susie's also one of the partners that built the app for protocols.
Yeah.
So I mean, she has a good amount of experience in that sort of thing. So, you know, I would just throw out there the two likely candidates are partnering with Central New York, if they will let us in, or going collaboration, Cypher Works.
I do see some problems with Cypher Works. The fact that when they switched over a couple of years ago, all of their CME stuff, all of their podcasts that the Division of Pre-Hospital Medicine had done, somehow got lost and never got put up on the new site.
They both do essentially the same thing. You can add your own content, you can buy content, it collects CMEs, it reports CMEs, however you want them to report CMEs. You know, the advantage, I think the big advantage to Central New York's is, and not so much that we may go in that direction versus going upstream, is you can check on, in this region, if you want to bring in a provider from Syracuse, you have access to all of his records. You have direct access to all his records. And she's Susquehanna, Central New York, Finger Lakes,
Mid, like Utica area, mid-state, they call that thing.
and maybe
Someone up way up north,
somebody up north.
like around that area.
So I mean, she's sort of over there, but Finger Lakes is on, and so I mean, it's kind of sort of,
The vibe I got from her was it didn't seem like any issue if we wanted to partner. You know, that she was very welcoming and friendly, so it seemed like if that's the direction we want to go, it doesn't.
So can we get more details like cost and?
yes.
What
we
it-
do
and
before- we
figure
do
out
before the
whether-
board first.
Yeah, and figure out whether it's gonna meet the needs of our,
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
our medics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so actually, you guys caught Jimmy by surprise. He called me and said, what's this all about? So really, it's a very preliminary thing right at the moment, but Dr. Kellogg and I have been discussing in great detail how to get mandatory regional updates out and how to do regional CME offerings. And I really think online is the way to go. Certainly, you know, I remember their system from a while ago, and it's been up and running for quite a while, so I'd be a little more comfortable with that than that EPCR mess we get into. But the idea is something that we could come together and offer providers in the region. Next time we do a protocol rollout, we can do the podcasts and providers can log in, do the podcast, do the test, get their certificate, and we'll be able to track those mandatory updates much easier. Plus the added benefit is for small agencies, volunteer squads that are doing CME research, we hopefully can give them the ability to help them with their record keeping at no cost.
So
to
the
them.
individuals create an account, and then they would do their CME work, and then you would be able to go
Well,
in as
it's,
administrator and look at all of that.
or, yeah, I guess my vision when I actually brought this up, wasn't to build a complete CME research program for every agency in the region. It was to do the things that we needed to do as a council and as a REMAC. And then if agencies wanted to add a little bit to that, or agencies wanted to purchase extra CME content, they could certainly do that on their own, but we'd have a platform where we could track the things that we needed to track. Regional updates, military QA offerings, things of that nature, so it's not online recertification in the sense that I think you guys are thinking about. It's
No, I was thinking
basically a
that,
system for us just to track what we need.
actually, we have similar things where we can go to a source, you create an account, and it just tracks whatever education you have, completed. So then you can always run a report about, print out what you've done, so you have a summary.
Is that through our health?
Well, that's through a library system, they have,
We looked at, most of those are HR driven, and there's an add-on component to that. Those are the ones, we looked at several of those, they're pretty expensive, because it's an HR.
yes, they are. We
it's
were
an
able to
HR
get it
component.
as part of the Western New York Consortium.
I would add one thing to the new Bureau Director, Ryan Greenberg, is very interested in taking a look at provider credentialing. And this is also, will assist the council, however, whatever direction it goes in as far as provider credentialing. He has a very keen interest in that, and, the conference call this morning spent a good amount of time. He wants to look at how it's being done and try to get some consensus going forward.
He is aware that would take a regulatory change, I know.
Oh, he's learning fast. They may be tired of seeing him already.
That home rule stuff is, and I agree, I mean, credentialing, a consistent credentialing model is a good idea,
But the value of this is if Rick wants to hire an AMR guy, he can look at the credentialing without me dragging in a pile of certificates and say, I did this, this, and this. So it has, there's that value to the council and to, containing it in this area, however you decide to go.
So that is then stepping into number G, letter G, agenda here, which is that the state is starting to put some pressure on the regions to take a more active role in provider credentialing on a regional level rather than on an individual agency level, which is the way we've been doing things. And we do have a regional provider credentialing policy, but essentially we are leaving things to the individual agencies to credential their own providers and track who and report to us. But it may come down from on high that is no longer acceptable in the near future. And so we need to at least be thinking about how we can address that as a region in a way that is as painless as possible for our providers, that does not limit the good jobs that many of our agencies are already doing in credentialing their providers, but potentially bring some of these smaller agencies maybe aren't quite as robust in that process up to the same level as the other agencies. And I don't think I have an answer for that right now, but I know that there's going to be a lot of fire flying at the council meeting next week. So we'll have many suggestions that you guys have that I can make to the council.
The director was also very sensitive for the commitment to the REMAX, because they've had a key role here, and they're the ones that are signing off on these things. So in the interim, I think he's going to develop some sort of survey. In his trips around the state, they definitely want some sort of annual competency test or review. Some are done by some are done by the medical director. Some are, they're considering having it, if the medical directors develop some sort of evaluator system, picking 5 people and you are evaluators, go forth and bless. Some are done by program agencies, and some are done by the agencies, specific agencies alone. So they just want to kind of rein this into a common platform.
What does the current one say?
Our current policy? I would have to
It's
say,
about 12 pages.
Say how.
I'm trying to remember, that was controversy when that thing was created.
It's a very bland policy, I mean,
Because there was so much controversy.
it's just either you're credentialed or you're inactive. So, and it doesn't give a reason for inactive status. So, it's very, it's very.
Oh, no, it's I remember, there was
It
quite
was
a
intentionally vague, because
firestorm when
it
that
was
was
a huge,
brought
it was a
up.
huge fight when we did.
Oh, huge fight.
And of course, credentialing only affects ALS providers. They just don't have the authority to credential EMTs. But if I were to suggest a piece of input, if we get the opportunity to do something in revamp, maybe we should be looking at what Pennsylvania does. And that is a medical director, basically a medical director credential.
Are you talking about medical command?
Well, every December, you get a 2-page form
Okay.
from Pennsylvania Department of Health. And it's up to my agency's medical director to verify my current CPR, ACLS, PHDLS. And then my medical director looks at my overall QI.
This is your agency medical director,
Correct.
not the regional
The
medical,
agency.
so it keeps it within the agency,
Correct.
their process, and then
Correct.
each agency is just reporting
Yep.
to
So,
the region.
so the agency medical director has 3 choices when he does that annual review. He can either continue an unrestricted practice. He can grant authority to practice with restrictions based on if he sees QI deficiencies or anything else that trips his trigger. Or he can flat out say, you know what, I'm not signing for this guy. And those are his 3 choices. Then that form gets sent to Harrisburg. And that's, in Pennsylvania, that's your authority to practice for the next year. It's a neat system because medical directors, agency medical directors are very hands-on.
So Dr. Lincolnheil is one of our ED doctors, and she's also medical director for multiple agencies there too, so maybe she could, I mean, that was good.
Yeah, so every December we have a skills day. We go over our forms. They bring in all their paperwork for me. I go down the line. Some of the QI cases that are mandatory reviews from the state, we go through with the individual providers. I check the box or I recommend remediation based on that, and then it gets sent to the state.
What do your numbers look like? Like who, how many you check off good? And
Oh,
how many-
everybody, because if there are issues, I know about it right away.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty hands-on with them.
How many providers do you have?
Probably 30.
I was gonna say 20 or 30.
Yeah.
And which group is this?
So I have
Greater
that
Valley?
Greater Valley, and then I have Guthrie
Okay.
that practice in PA. Cornell provide the LifeNet in Cornell also has the same, because they have to be able to dip down into Pennsylvania and practice.
So do the same for them.
It honestly is a neat system.
Other remax in the area, similar things are going on. I have TS out in Wellsville, and I go down once or twice a year just to watch them do skills and make sure everything's up to date, and then randomly we'll pick charts to audit and everything just to make sure.
It's good accountability, for sure.
Sounds like we could do something like that without any problems.
I just wish it was online, so that I can
Yeah.
click it, see
No more
that done.
papers, right?
Yeah.
I think that process will.
I agree with your first part
Keeping it in and out.
sounds like we could do that. I don't agree about the second part, which is without any problem. I think that would be challenging. I'm not opposed to it, but I think it could be challenging.
Yeah, well, for the medical directors of the paid systems, right?
Yes.
So for
because-
you, for
Yes.
AMR, and for.
Right. Because, yes.
Right, but how many providers does AMR have in a roster?
Well, we kind of do the same thing at Irway's. I mean, it's actually kind of similar as in-house is that, you know, there's really, if you can practice by yourself as a standalone paramedic, or the second one is you have to practice with another paramedic as your partner. And the third one is that you're relegated back to EMT status.
So who does
So,
the CP?
The medical director does, Dr.
The
Magnaro,
C-
he makes the decision, and it's all dependent on,
Right.
you know, what the particular situation is at the time. But those are the three statuses that we have.
So you're already doing that.
Yeah. So, and then it would just,
But the regional policy is just either active or inactive as it stands. And
correct.
if Early's already doing it, and if we get the opportunity to retool it,
I think the best thing about this is that it remains with the agency medical director. So the agency medical
Right, that is-
director, the agency medical director keeps their fingers on it. And I think will allay a lot of the fears that some of the agencies have where they feel like it's being taken away from their medical director, the person who actually has the ultimate responsibility for the practicing paramedic.
No, I think it's a good idea to have the agency medical director and then report to us who's good and who's not good, and then I think we're done. Maybe not easily.
Yeah, no, there just has, obviously there has to be a uniform standard.
Right,
Uniform everything.
Right.
That transcends.
Yeah, I think we should work on that.
So it would seem to me, that we should work on this and have this so we can get out in front of whatever the state says. We say, well, see, we have a really good policy that we're doing right now, and that way they're not gonna try to force something on us that we like less. If everybody thinks that this sounds at least close to acceptable, I'll discuss it at the council meeting next week, and then try for our December meeting to bring a provider credentialing policy and some kind of form for agency medical directors to complete that would be acceptable to this body.
I think we can download the form to use as kind of like a template and remodel it on our own. The one thing I don't know, maybe Doctor, you can answer the question. I don't know that I've ever seen a policy that goes with that form. Is it?
I think it's up to the region, so like, I actually send mine to the northeastern PA region, so I think it's by region in Pennsylvania, so I don't know that there's truly a Pennsylvania code for it.
I'm getting good at writing these policies. I can pull one together pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, once you see the form, it's pretty easy to write the policy around the form, actually.
I mean, there's so much of it is, like when I sign off on somebody's CME, okay? I don't know if they did their CME. I'm signing the form, yeah, they did their CME. And I mean, they could have, written in whatever they
How did the CMEs come to you? Do they come from the agency CME coordinator, or do they come from the individual themselves? Because it should be coming from the agency CME coordinator, and he's the one who should be your eyes and ears, verifying that this was actually done.
Or a certificate of some sort.
Yeah.
It's,
So we have an online database, so they just print their CMEs, and most of what I see people doing, they're on there, or they're getting CMEs from me from like the stuff we do face to face, so.
Each of the regions in PA has a learning management system. So when I get a certificate from up here, I scan it and upload it to Word EMSI. So within a week, somebody in that regional office somewhere makes a decision whether to approve that credit or not approve it. I've never had one not approved, so they must think highly of New York. That's one of the neat things about their
That's another advantage of a nice LMS.
LMS.
So that the medical directors could also be, filtering in and out of that and seeing, okay, my provider, okay, they're where they need to be, or no, they're a little deficient now.
So are we back to the central New York thing again? Computer
That's an
system?
option.
I mean, I
Any
think we
LMS
should
will
be,
be able to do that
we should
for
be
you.
offering that as an option. I don't know that we should be requiring everybody has to use that platform to track their CMEs if they would rather track them internally in their agency.
As long as it's equal or better.
Right, exactly.
Well, they're two separate things, and I think, the agencies that want to do their own CME research stuff, God bless you.
Yeah.
But when it comes to regional protocol update, or we need to do a regional mandatory stroke training, anything that the REMAC mandates, if we put it on a regional LMS,
We can track.
now you can pull down a report and you can tell exactly how many providers have complied, who hasn't complied, and we don't run into the issues we ran into the last time about whether people we're in compliance or not in compliance and all the confusion, you can just pull it down. You can say, you know what, if it's regionally required, go to this website, and it tracks the transcript, and you have it. And then if agencies want to pull that down and use it for their own CME stuff, they can.
But as much as we can avoid rocking boats that don't need to be rocked, is better, I think.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I think we got a reasonable way forward there. We brought up at the last meeting that there were the interest in transporting patients with blood running, and could we potentially develop a regional policy on that? There's actually a state policy on that, which is the next form in your packet. And it appears for this, I think this is the most recent one out there from the Bureau, that essentially if an agency wants to run blood, they need approval from the Bureau to do that. So I think that supersedes our authority to do anything here.
And a side note, I had an agency out of this region, reach out with these same questions. So I reached out to the state and asking some of the regional reps, to their knowledge, no one upstate is doing it to their knowledge.
It's a very onerous policy,
Right.
and also it's all dependent on individual hospitals' willingness to participate, because you have to partner with the blood bank. So if we want to transport someone with blood from the Arnett, we have to partner with their blood bank. But if we want to transport someone from Corning, we can't use that partnership with Arnett's blood bank. We have to form a whole other partnership with Corning's blood bank, and so on and so forth. So it's each individual's hospital's blood bank or health system's blood bank. You have to partner. You have to follow their policies. You have to. It's very difficult.
We started down that road at my job, and that's exactly what we found. There was a disconnect between the emergency rooms and the blood banks, because the ER docs were all about, let's hang this and let's get them moving, and the blood banks,
Yeah,
even though the policy and the regulations were changed to make it very doable, blood bank people were pretty,
Yeah, when this policy first came out, I tried to partner with the
They're very
Arnett's blood bank,
regulated.
yeah.
and it was that they weren't against it, but they were very difficult to deal with.
Mhm.
And I think that's a universal
Yeah.
thing about blood banks.
They're very quirky.
I mean, generally, in the past, if we've transferred patients with blood, we've sent a nurse.
Right.
Yeah, which by law it has to be a licensed provider, unless an agency does this ambulance transfusion service. But like Rick said, the hang-up isn't with getting medical directors or getting
Right.
ERs on
Yeah, it's
board.
the blood bank.
The blood banks, even though you can show them regulations that were crafted in partnership with the Blood and Tissue Council at the state level, the local blood banks aren't, they just don't want to buy it. They're like, not doing it.
Yeah. No, I mean, so once again, it's like similar to the RSI thing. Do you think there's a need to jump through these hoops in our area to?
With our volume at Airways, 2 or 3 times a month at the most.
Yeah.
I mean,
And a lot of times they just delay the transport till the bag's done and then do the transport.
so, yeah, there's different options, okay? I mean, I've had situations, it would be great if we could do this, but it's such a pain in the butt that it's just not gonna happen. If you read this, it's impossible to comply with, okay? I mean, one of the things says the medical director has to submit a report to the state within 24 hours of an adverse reaction. It's like, when is that gonna happen? You know, but if you don't do it, then the state can come after you. So, I mean, you know what the drill is. I mean, you got the guy, I'll give you a hard example in the corner, okay? You got the guy who was run over by the truck, who's gonna die, he needs to go to the trauma center, but he's not gonna make it to the trauma center without blood. So you give him blood, you throw 3 bags of blood, and you throw an RN in the rig, and and the RN goes and they give the blood.
Yeah.
Or you do the other thing, you say, okay, they're stable, let's finish the unit of blood, and you squeeze it in or you don't squeeze it in, whatever. and you get it done.
Right.
And that's what you do,
Yeah, so,
right?
right, no, that's what you have to do, and so I don't think it's worth trying to do the other.
I tried to do this, forget it.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
It's like impossible,
Right,
because nobody,
no one wants to
you
play.
just get
No one wants
emails
to-
sent to
right.
other people who don't want to do anything.
Right.
So it's impossible.
Yeah.
The last time I talked with the state, it was, they only had 2 or 3 services statewide that were actually going through this process.
And those are probably people that were incredibly masochistic.
To be frankly honest, I think they were hospital, they were probably hospital.
Probably.
That's a little nice hoop to jump through.
And the worst part about this is there are other states where blood's made its way into ambulances for pre-hospital use.
Welcome to New York State.
But on the bright side, we can just TXA and be done with it.
The TXA is not for everybody.
Well, no.
There you go. The last thing in your packets here is just an advisory from Arnett that St. Joe's Mixed Medical is no longer admitting patients. He sent this out to as many of the regional agencies as we could last week. This happened. But just so you guys are all aware, if you haven't heard, your agencies haven't heard, please take it back to them. Medical patients with suspected medical issues requiring medical admission should ideally not be transported to St. Joe's. They should be transported to an alternate facility. If you think that they have an isolated psychiatric thing, that can still go to St. Joe's, because St. Joe's still has the VFU. We can still admit patients there. But any medical patients requiring admission will be transferred out of St. Joe's. Marianne, can we have a QI update?
Oh, sure. Based on the recommendation from the Stremac, we met, it was kind of late spring at Corning Hospital and did more of an orientation because there are new representatives, new facilities, and went over the QA program. And it was actually well attended and some good questions came up about it. There's frustration on Terry's and my part trying to get a handle, to be honest with you, for the region. I think people are still doing what they, their own thing, but not everybody's doing their own thing. And I guess we're asking the Stremac to help support and remind everyone that they are required to participate in a quality improvement project review study based on indicators recommended by the Stremac, or if they want to do focus studies, that too. I know a couple of agencies are talking about doing sepsis. They want to look at that. But I don't know where that stands yet, because we haven't had our meeting yet. Terry and I have to select the next dates. In a summary.
So apart from sending a letter to agencies saying, please participate, what else can we do to support you? 'Cause
I'm open to suggestion too, because, it's kind of like herding cats. It's, everybody's life is busy. But there are some agencies that meet regularly and review their quality initiatives or performance measures, whatever you want to call it. But I don't think we have designed an adequate feedback loop. I'm used to that where, you select what your indicators are, you review your data, and then you make a decision on what you're going to do, and then you can be able to close the loop, hopefully. So I don't think it's consistent. So again, we're looking for some guidance, what CMAC wants to do, or Stremac, wants to do about that. And any suggestions what other folks are doing is appreciated. Are you finding it's like herding cats as well?
I think it's a broken system right now in the region of Pennsylvania, so I can't, like the QI portion and the oversight of that is broken. And then on Susquehanna side, they're working on developing a sort of a form for QI, and I think it's more of a checkbox type format that perhaps the chief or whoever is involved in the service can go down and check box things if things are happening, or yes, no type answers, and then the medical director can sign off on it so that it's streamlined. But that's still in the works from Susquehanna too.
See, my vision was, particularly since sepsis is such a hot topic, no pun intended, but was that the agencies receive the education review of the protocol and then start to audit the charts for compliance.
I guess, for me, to start something up from this, I mean, why not just start right from the beginning and build something that you really,
That's what
that you
we-
really want to do?
And Rick, I totally agree with you,
but
but we
the-
can't get the commitment to do that.
The questions you have to ask yourself before you can
That's
build
the
it,
problem.
build it though, is you have to ask yourself is what are we gonna look at? Are we gonna look at solely compliance, or are we gonna look at benchmarking? Are we look at we're meeting the standards so we can offer
Well-
education associated with that? I mean, how,
So-
I'm not
So,
into
Rick, what do
collecting
you-
data
what-
for
what do you
collecting
do?
data.
What do you do with your?
we have a program called Insight Analytics. There are ways it's built into our EPCR and our CAD and our billing systems. And what it does is essentially it's a benchmark system. So, you know, looking at QI the old way where you actually read the chart, you know, and you have the protocol next to you and say, did the person meet the protocol? And that's actually gone away. It's actually, the system itself actually looks at every chart that comes through, and it actually looks, it gives percentages on how many percentages of chest pains receive nitroglycerin. So I can type in whatever question I want into Insight Analytics. Say I want to know how many, what was the percentage of people that had chest pain that was suspected cardiac received nitroglycerin, and bam, it would show me, you know, 92% of patients with chest pain that was suspected cardiac in nature received nitroglycerin and aspirin. And so I can look at that and say, you know, we're above the 90 percentile for that, so we're actually not too bad with that. But then I look at how many pediatric patients, you know, received, you know, X, Y, Z, and I come back and it comes up at 76%. I can say, you know, these pediatric patients, you know, we're kind of missing the mark on that. Maybe we need to up our pediatric education. And that's kind of how we look at it. The old way where I actually, when I actually used to have the PCR in front of me with the protocol right next to me, and then I would have to say, well, what was this paramedic thinking? Was he thinking that this was a chest pain, or was he thinking that this was, you know, a pleural effusion or something like that? And I would actually have to find the protocol that I think that the provider actually followed and actually see if he met the protocol. And that was just a terrible system and a terrible way to
Since
meet.
1997, we collected
Right.
that data.
Right, because there's so much assumption on the part of the person who's
And all it was
reviewing
was
the call.
documentation,
So
whether it was
George,
documented or not.
what do you got, what do you do for AMR, what do they do?
We pick different things to look at and look at those specific things. And a lot of times when you're looking at those specific things, you find other things.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, so is it possible to take what they're doing and then bring it to her committee so that, like there's some
Well,
sort
I
of-
think what we're talking about is, a lot of the agencies want a template to follow when they do their quality review, so they, whatever is generated, that's what they want. It's not exactly the way it used to be, but it's like, I'll use stroke as the example, because that's the hot topic, that's what everybody's gonna look at, that's what the state's collecting now like crazy anyways. So they wanna know the time you were dispatched, the time you arrived, the time you called, did you do the fibrolytic risk assessment, did you do a glucose, did you document last known well? Those are things that the state has to receive on all the patients that arrive by ambulance at a stroke center. So we do that as 100% review. And then that data is entered and the state can look at it in any way they want. But the other way they looked at data was image trends, right?
Right, image trend, you can look at image trend, but image trends data is really not that robust.
Okay.
So
I mean, it will be. Well, hopefully with the version 3 it will be. With the version 2, it's not really that robust.
Right, but in
So-
the past, it was this body that directed the region as to what they wanted to look at. And they selected chest pains, because everybody has one. And then they looked at trauma. I think they looked at cardiac arrest, the GCS lesson 15. And occasionally it was like pediatrics they throw in there, and they threw stroke in there. Those are like the big hot topics that everyone reviewed. And again, we collected that data from 1997. We had the graphs. And occasionally we did generate an educational program based on that, but that was driven by the PEDS data.
So I think for our region, right, and we've identified that we want to look at sepsis, we've talked about that for several meetings now. What are the questions that we as a body feel are the sepsis questions that we want addressed in QI? We'll feed that back to Marianne and her committee, who can then request that information from the agencies. And then based on the results of that, we will generate an educational thing to go on our new educational module when that launches. And then we can even do a follow-up study to see if compliance improved with whatever the metrics are that we've identified. That seems like the right way to approach it to me. So what are the key questions that we think we want to be looking at on sepsis charts?
So I want to ask the other question though, before that. Why would we want to even go there? Why would we want to look at sepsis pre-hospital when we don't even know what to do in critical care ED with sepsis?
So maybe that's not what we want to do.
Well, I can agree. I mean, there's the people that are on the committees who are telling the doctors on the front lines what to do, and the doctors in the front lines are saying, "You're crazy." So, like, why would we want to look at that
How
pre-hospital?
would we define, are we gonna use QSOF, or are we gonna use SIRS, super SIRS, which one?
Well, you're gonna follow the protocol.
And
There's a protocol that breaks it down exactly what you gotta do.
Protocol in place already.
It's already there.
Those are approved.
And it has to do with vital signs and a couple other elements, and if you find that there's a yes, 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 then that's when you're supposed to institute the fluid. I mean, that's pretty straight, that's gonna help the ED, it's not gonna hurt them.
And the crux of
Maybe,
our,
maybe the question, all we want to do is, did the provider recognize that this patient could be septic, yes or no? And if there's a bunch of no's, despite what the protocol outlines,
So
then we
we're not
can do
really
some
looking at the
educate.
protocol.
Again, we're not saying you need to do X, Y, or Z, we just want you to be thinking that in your differential.
So you're looking
So
at
how many
documentation.
so how many heart failures are you gonna capture then? You know, I'm sorry, like, they're always gonna have
Whatever you choose, you need to make sure that it's meaningful and that you're gonna be able to make an impact in your region. And so, is there an issue that right now among your EMS providers, like what keeps you awake at night as a medical director with your providers? Is it scene times? Is it, what are you seeing come in that you'd be like, boy, I wish I could really.
I think it's going to be
something on
different for every hospital. For my hospital, okay, it's transporting patients, traumatic patients, to our hospital when they shouldn't be. When they should just be going to the trauma center or calling medical control, saying, can we bypass you? Or we're bringing this trauma patient in because we can't bypass, instead of just
Showing up.
So
showing
maybe
up
it's triage.
and saying, sorry, but we don't teach mechanism of injury doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. Okay, so if you fell off a 20-foot building, we don't worry about that anymore because it's not a thing. That's one of the things that keeps me up.
Is there any commonality to the things that you're concerned about?
well, it should be kind of a thing though, because everybody should be following the CDC trauma
Yeah.
triage guidelines. And quite honestly, sometimes you run afoul of that when you go to the local hospital and they say, you should have gone there, and it's like, well, but according to the CDC guidelines in my assessment, it was appropriate to come here. So sometimes there winds up being a little debate about.
So maybe looking at patients that arrive in your facility by EMS and that transfer out. I mean, that's not EMS, but you could look at the triage on those type
Or
of.
just review all the transfer
You can
outs.
look at them and compare them against the CDC.
Mhm.
The problem with reviewing transfer outs is, I had a recent case that actually my medical director rode with me on the call. This guy fell off a bicycle, with a knot on his head, no helmet, loss of consciousness, put some alcohol on board. I said, I'm a little loss of consciousness, I'm not really comfortable just going downtown. I think we're going north. And he said, well, if you look at the CDC trauma guidelines, it would have been appropriate to go that way, but, everybody looks at things differently. And I guess I think every doctor here would agree that sometimes patients come in and we find surprises. That there's no way providers are gonna find on a routine assessment, but those surprises aren't fatal surprises. Those are surprises that, okay, now they go up to the next level of care.
All right, here's our QI plan. Homework for all the doctors at this table. At our next meeting in December, we all have to each bring 2 or 3 QI questions that we would like answered, and then we will vote as a group as to which of those questions we want Marianne and her committee to tackle in 2019. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
You wouldn't even vote, they're prioritized.
Yeah,
That's fine.
I bet a lot of them will be similar.
That's right.
Now,
So what keeps you up at night?
What keeps you up at night at EMS?
so we had Michael Taylor here about 3 years ago.
Yep.
To discuss the new generation of quality assurance. And really the trend is toward benchmarking, the same as what Irway is doing. If we can ever get a regional bridge, that's the direction I think we really should ultimately be in, is benchmarking.
But I think we also need to remind the agencies
Yeah,
out there
in the
that
short
they
term.
need to participate. It's a
Absolutely.
requirement, it's a regulation, it's not just something that our council is requesting.
Just a little input from, apparently this is a topic also that Dr. Director Greenberg is acutely interested in, and he is going to ask at the state meeting, the CMAC to identify a dozen QI, QA topics, similar to what you're doing, and try to pare that down to 6. And he's going to try to universalize this for the entire state, similar to exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
He has his new words are key performance improvement measures, KPIs, and he's also transitioning towards this has to be electronic. So he's going to tie the EPCRs to that to get away from trying to look at paperwork and
And
things like that.
and sometimes that's where the providers get burned because they put a lot in their narrative where they,
Get pulled out.
that doesn't get pulled out in the data boxes.
But you have the ability, at least with our system, and I think it's probably fairly universal, is you have the ability to make questions mandatory, and that you can't close out your chart until that question is answered.
Right.
And at least in our system, we have the ability to add questions. So we have the ability.
Gotta get a lot of information from the narrative.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where a lot of the providers,
I prefer it anyways.
yes, but that's the old way of doing it.
Yeah, and as Rick's right, as we move forward, we did that a lot. We'll get questionnaires attached to the chart. And if a certain call type or a certain parameter gets met, it opens up that box and you gotta answer it before you can close out your chart. And again, the regional bridge is someplace we really need to be. But I would caution again, Mr. Greenberg's idea that key performance measures, as Dr. Morrow said, aren't necessarily the same in Corning as they are in Albany.
Well, especially when you do it in New York State, and when you're comparing Elmira, New York to Buffalo or New York City, I mean,
Exactly.
the performance measures are completely different.
And as we looked at the Compass model, the unique thing about that was it compared agencies to similar agencies across the country,
Right.
similar demographics,
Right.
similar territories, so that you could actually benchmark
Right.
yourself,
Yeah.
not against FDNY, but against.
Well, I mean, maybe that could be brought in the bridge, because that's part of the NEMSIS 3 requirements, is that you have to put in your population, your
Right.
agency type, your agency makeup, everything like that, and I'm sure that can be pulled down in so that you can filter out.
All right.
Well, we appreciate
I think
that.
we've
Thank
spent
you.
enough time on this topic for this
Thank you.
meeting, going around in circles,
It has.
if it's quick.
The moral of the story is, I think a strongly worded letter from this body
Yes.
needs to go to everybody.
Yes. We will send out a letter that says you must participate, and at our December meeting, we will identify what it is we want you to do.
Can I say to you a little bit of heat?
Okay?
Maybe sending that to an agency that has religiously participated in QI may not result in the best response that you're looking for. So maybe you should pare that down to the agencies that are not participating. I would.
And the others will get thank you for your continued participation.
Exactly, because I would think sending that to an agency that has a 100% participation rate since 1997, saying that you are required to participate, and if you don't, you get this sort of slap on the wrist, is going to cause you a little bit of trouble. And
I will wordsmith accordingly.
He's very good at that.
Politically correct. Someone's sensitive, jeez.
I'm just trying to, you know, I've sat on this committee for 20 years like Donnie has, and I just want to save you, you know, a little
I appreciate it.
institutional knowledge and save you a little bit of heat.
All right, the last item on our agenda is approvals and endorsements. Number one in front of me, I have a CV from Dr. Gabrielle Garcia Ryan, who is recommended for membership by Dr. Morrow. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today because he's working overnight, but certainly in glancing at his CV, it seems like he would be a welcome addition to this body. I'll pass these around for other folks to look at.
In the grand tradition of our railroad, does Dr. Lincoln Heil have a CV that she could send us so she can participate on this committee?
I would love to. I have one, Brandon has it, I think, but I can forward it to you. And then,
Glasses
I
Do
have, do
you,
you have it?
do you live here in the region?
I do,
Oh, perfect then, never
I
mind.
do. But, sorry to back up, I'm gonna forward you the Mid-Lakes region QI bundles that they have, just so you have it.
So should we approve her too?
I would very much like to approve her. Can you introduce yourself to the
Sure.
assemblage?
I'm Beth. I was born in Corning Hospital. Charlie introduced me to the field of emergency medicine. I eventually made it to medical school, and I came back home to practice emergency medicine. I'm at Guthrie Robert Packer. I work with Lisa on the trauma committee as sort of a liaison to EMS now. I take care of Guthrie Air, LifeNet 77, and LifeNet 78. I just had a baby, and I have 2 dogs. I like wine.
You'll fit in perfect.
All right.
I go by Beth.
I've corresponded with Beth on a couple EMS issues over the last year, and I have nothing but good things to think about you, so I would strongly nominate you to be on this committee.
I would love to.
I second. How about the silver guy? Him too?
Sounds good as well.
There's the CV.
So we don't.
Are you gonna forward that out?
We got it.
Yes.
Well, I don't know, Beth, we need to ask you to step out of the room while we
Oh, sure.
confirm you
I
or not.
will. You should.
Don't go too far.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, Beth,
Wow, we.
How was that?
It's just sounding fun.
I thought I had done this spring, but there are 2 open non-voting seats.
You probably know.
And Heather do appoint
I
going
think I talked to him on the phone.
from the council to fill in the non-voting seats. And from CMR.
Mark, you want to-
You took care of me as a kid.
So I'll go back through the minutes. I was quick.
Like it's in there.
Done that with council meeting.
You have it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
So
familiar.
if you-
we can add him to the REMAC list.
Do we need to review anything?
No, actually, the.
I don't think we get a say on
non-voting
it. I think
members
that
come
the
from-
council gets to appoint whoever they want to that.
So they do the background check and all that.
Whatever needs to happen.
Actually, they come from the council, so yeah, he's okay, I guess.
He's good.
And then our other applicant here, I would move that we approve him as well. Yep. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, Stremac is growing. Moving on to the rest of our pile here. Number 1, I have Bradford Volunteer Fire Company, approval to do defibrillation, epi-auto injectors, albuterol, blood glucose, all at the EMT level of care. Rick assures me that this is all complete because he has done it himself. So we don't need to really do much apart from say that we received this, right? And we basically,
You had to give them authorization, they already had the AED and the epinephrine, they're adding blood glucometry and albuterol to their,
Repertoire.
to the repertoire, so it just requires authorization from the medical advisory committee to allow them to do that.
I move
Their
that-
medical director, Dr. Zimmerman, has already authorized it.
I move that we support Dr. Newman's authorization.
Thank you.
Have a second on it? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Fantastic. I also have your,
And you're doing certificates for those, right? I'm sorry, doing certificates for them, as they're approved.
I also have your approvals for Forest View Gang Mills adding naloxone.
Can we do this en masse?
Yes, we can. I will circulate this around. These are all the approvals that we're being asked to do.
I think everybody's got
I
it.
get it,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Oh,
Got it?
Consent agenda. You want to do that?
I know that we approved them all.
The
All
more
in favor?
naloxone, the better.
More naloxone, exactly. Any opposed? All right, I think that's all I have. Anything else that anybody else has?
I have one quick thing,
Yes,
sorry.
please.
So November 2nd and 3rd, we are doing Concepts in Trauma and Critical Care, our yearly conference. This year it's at Tioga Downs, so I think it's gonna be really nice up there. And we have a great speaker coming. He is from Texas. He's a PhD, and he's a like an advanced practice nurse in their neurosurgical unit, and he's doing a lecture called Snow White Had a Stroke, and it brings in like all the Disney characters describing different stroke symptoms, so I think it's going to be really fun. He's our opening. We have a lot of other great speakers coming. So again, November 2nd and 3rd, Tioga Downs. On the 2nd, which is filled now, but Sundays is open, we're doing a tactical combat,
TCCC?
yes, TCCC course. You know, probably most people know what that is. And at a discounted rate, it's normally like $160, and we're doing it for $80 per 80 or
You fell
85
down the
person.
building, or
What's that?
you gonna fell down Tioga?
Oh gosh, no, I'm not. It's like a mass shooting type thing, I guess is what it is. So and it's nationally known. Medicine in bad places. Those folks are coming in, and so it's going to be a really great conference. So come on down and check it out if you can. And we will have New York State CEUs or whatever you call it for that as well. So PA in New York. So you're welcome to come down.
When is it?
It is November 2nd and 3rd. November 2nd is the pre-conference, which is the TCCC, which is filled, but then we're doing it on Sunday as well. Friday night is all part of the conference, so Friday night we're doing a great class with those people with medicine in bad places. They'll do the evening pre-conference. And then, so what you get for your buck is that you get Friday night conference and all day Saturday. So it ends up being 8 to 9 hours of continuing education credit, so.
Can you,
$20 free gamble.
I'll send out the brochure.
okay, can you have the brochure?
And I will send you the brochure.
I've seen it 5 times.
Okay,
You did
good.
a great job becoming there.
Can you put that on the website and actually also forward it to the council, so the council can post it on their website as well?
And by the way, when you do your education day, we have a whole list of providers as well, so if you want us to forward in reciprocity, we'll do that for you.
Yeah, because it seems like LTS and out to the west don't really have any options.
Yeah, they don't
That's true.
do a whole lot.
So yeah, any help, any contacts you've got through LTS or I've got EMSI taken care of.
I do have 2 other endorsements that Mike had written on my page that don't think made it on anyone else's pages that are for EPCR. Cornell is moving to an EPCR that's Nemesis 3, and Fremont is in the process of doing that. These are just kind of FYI, and I
You
move
have to endorse it.
I move that we endorse that they are doing this, which they are doing.
And you've
They're
got
currently
people-
with EMS charge, and they're
Right.
transitioning to Nemesis 3.
Right. But they have to redo the paper, that form, correct?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Fremont's is pending. Peter just alerted us yesterday, or Nelson submitted this morning. We're waiting for Fremont. It's just a transition to Nemesis 3,
Right.
so they need your endorsements.
I move that we endorse.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Any opposed? All right. I got nothing for real this time. Anybody else?
I move that we adjourn.
I said.
It's
It's
one of my,
Yeah.
one of the things that I like best now, to see kids that I so kids were watching them grow up.